Before the hiss, before the coil, before the shimmer of scales in sunlight, the world was still finding its shape. The continents were not yet where we know them. Mountains were smaller, oceans broader, and life had only just learned how to breathe on land. It was the late Devonian 370 million years ago, and amphibians had begun to crawl from the water's edge, their wet bodies glistening with the effort of gravity. Among them were creatures that would one day give rise to everything that slithered, scuttled, or soared. Their bones told the first story of transition: fins stretched into limbs, gills into lungs. They moved awkwardly across mudflats, their ribs heaving against the weight of new air. The planet itself was still humid and half drowned, its forests of moss and ferns humming with primitive insects. And in that silence of beginnings, the ancestry of snakes was already in motion. The earliest reptiles, small lizard-like beings with sprawling gaits, appeared not as predators, but as survivors. They were masters of hiding. While giants battled for sunlight, these early forms sought safety in leaf litter and shallow burrows. Their senses sharpened, their limbs shortened, their ribs grew long and flexible. The blueprint of the serpent was assembling piece by piece, almost unnoticed. Time passed, millions of years measured in layers of stone. By the late Permian, as climates dried and deserts spread, these early reptiles learned a new rhythm. Walking was costly, slithering was efficient. Ribs and muscles worked together like the bellows of an instrument, pushing the body in waves across sand. Evolution had discovered motion without legs, and once the first glide began, it never truly stopped. But the path from lizard to snake was not direct. It wound through countless experiments, each generation adjusting shape to match the world around it. Some burrowed deeper, others returned to the water. Bones shrank, hips faded, shoulders disappeared. Yet traces of their limbs remained tiny fossils of what once was, buried beneath modern anatomy like whispers in bone. When paleontologists study these relics, they find ghosts of legs in the genomes of modern snakes. Even today, certain species carry vestigial spurs near the tail, remnants of hind limbs long gone. They serve no purpose except memory, biological echoes of a time when their ancestors walked. Evolution, it seems, never truly erases. It rewrites. The fossil record offers clues in flashes rather than chapters. In South America's ancient shale lies Naja shrionegrina, a creature halfway between lizard and serpent. It slithered with a sinuous spine, yet still bore tiny functional legs. Its skull, narrow and kinetic, hints at the flexible jaws that would later define its descendants. In its bones, scientists read transformation frozen mid-sentence, the language of change caught between alphabets. Across oceans, in Lebanon's limestone beds, fossils of Eupotophus and Haseophis tell the same story. They are snakes, unmistakably so elongated, limb-reduced, serpentine in posture, but each bears miniature hind legs tucked against the body like forgotten wings. X-ray scans show pelvis bones still attached to the spine, delicate yet deliberate. These creatures swam in warm Cretaceous seas roughly 95 million years ago, suggesting that some snakes first evolved not on land, but in water. The ocean, with its endless fluid resistance, may have encouraged the rhythm of slithering before land ever did. In water, legs become drag, ribs become paddles. The long, narrow body slides more easily through waves than any finned fish could. It is an elegance born of necessity motion that wastes nothing. And so, from sea to shore, the serpentine shape proved too efficient to abandon. As eons turned, snakes refined that shape into mastery. Their skulls loosened. Their jaws became hinges of wonder, capable of opening wide enough to swallow creatures many times their size. Ligaments stretched like silk between bones, turning rigidity into flexibility. Vision sharpened, smell deepened, and a new organ evolved in the roof of the mouth, the Jacobson S organ, a twin chamber that could taste the air itself. With each flick of the tongue, molecules of scent danced across those receptors, translating invisible trails into maps of the living world. The forest floor became a symphony of signals: heat, vibration, scent, soundless movement. To thrive there, the snake didn't need speed, it needed silence. It learned patience. Its body became an instrument of waiting. Hidden beneath leaves, it could sense the heartbeats of nearby prey through the ground. A whisper of muscle, a contraction of ribs, and the forest's calm turned suddenly into strike. Yet despite their fearsome reputation, the first true snakes were not all hunters. Some grazed on soft-bodied invertebrates, others scavenged eggs or carrion. They occupied niches left empty by larger predators, filling the gaps of ecosystems with quiet efficiency. The diversity of their forms expanded with the world's climates: slender tree dwellers, thick-bodied constrictors, burrowers blind to sunlight. Wherever there was space to move, they adapted to it. What began as a single lineage branched into 1,000 forms. Some, like the early boas and pythons, grew heavy and muscular, their constriction powerful enough to still a heartbeat in seconds. Others became sleek and venomous, evolving glands that turned digestion into weaponry. Venom, at first a digestive aid, became specialized through time peptides sculpted by selection to paralyze, dissolve, or kill with exquisite precision. In that chemistry lay both survival and mythology. Even as mammals rose and dinosaurs fell, snakes endured, their design too perfect to fade. They survived the asteroid impact that ended the Cretaceous, coiling in burrows while firestorms swept the surface. When the smoke cleared, they emerged into a world newly open, ready to climb, swim, and spread. From tropical swamps to deserts of stone, from jungles to rooftops, their silence conquered every corner. By the dawn of the Cenozoic, snakes were everywhere. Fossil beds from India to Wyoming reveal their early empires, giants like Titanoboa, stretching nearly 15 meters long, sliding through prehistoric rivers thick with crocodiles. Its vertebrae, each the size of a human fist, tell of muscle dense as cable. It was not a creature of speed, but of inevitability, a living current beneath the water, older than memory. And yet, even the titans passed. As climates cooled and continents drifted apart, new species took their place, smaller, faster, more specialized. Evolution favors balance, not dominance. Snakes learned to blend rather than rule. Camouflage replaced size, subtlety replaced strength. The hiss became whisper, the predator became presence. As the earth cooled into its new shape, forests thickened and rivers carved their way through softer stone. The air, once heavy with carbon, grew clearer. Life settled into rhythm again, cautious after catastrophe. And out of that quiet renewal came the snakes, inheritors of an old design made new. They emerged not as conquerors, but as wanderers. Their bodies could move through spaces where other animals could not under bark, through grass, beneath sand, even inside burrows built by others. In the aftermath of extinction, such subtlety was strength. They fed on the insects and small vertebrates that survived the chaos, keeping populations in balance while the world rebuilt itself. Evolution rewards what endures, not what dominates. Over millions of years, their movement became poetry. Each species refined its own choreography. Some slid in straight lines, muscles rippling beneath overlapping scales like waves beneath silk. Others sidewound across dunes, using only 2 points of contact at a time, leaving winding signatures on the sand that shimmered at dawn. Tree dwellers learned to grip branches in coils, their bodies balancing like living ropes. Sea snakes flattened their tails into paddles, turning fluid grace into propulsion. Every landscape called forth a different rhythm, and the snakes answered in kind. The architecture of their skeletons changed to match. A human spine holds just over 30 vertebrae. A python may have more than 400, each joint a hinge of astonishing precision. Through those joints runs an unbroken conversation of bone and muscle, allowing motion that is both endless and exact. There is no center, no hierarchy, only flow. It is as though the entire body became one continuous thought. Within that body, other senses sharpened to fill the silence. The tongue, forked and delicate, evolved into a double antenna, tasting direction itself. Each flick draws invisible molecules into the air, dividing them left and right before delivering them to the Jacobson S organ for analysis. To a snake, scent is shape. The world is mapped not by light, but by chemistry. Each molecule a landmark in a terrain of invisible currents. In some lineages, a new sense appeared, one beyond human perception. Specialized pits along the face began detecting infrared radiation, allowing snakes to see warmth in darkness. A mouse running through grass glowed like a small sun. The night itself unfolded in gradients of heat and life. This thermal vision, refined in pythons, boas, and vipers, made them masters of the unseen. They could hunt without eyes, guided by the quiet light of temperature. As ecosystems diversified, so did their tactics. Constrictors perfected the mathematics of pressure just enough to stop circulation, never so much as to crush bone. Each coil adjusted automatically to the fading pulse of prey, tightening only as needed. Venomous species, meanwhile, evolved chemistry so precise it blurred the line between weapon and art. Neurotoxins that silenced nerves within seconds, hemotoxins that dissolved barriers cell by cell, cytotoxins that sculpted the borders of pain. Every molecule was a syllable in a language millions of years in the making. Yet behind that lethality lay purpose, not malice. Venom served efficiency. It immobilized prey quickly, minimizing struggle, conserving energy. A coiled strike replaced a prolonged chase. Digestion began even before swallowing. It was evolution's perfect balance of mercy and necessity. And for every venomous line, a dozen harmless ones thrived quietly, content with insects, eggs, or carrion. The serpent's reputation for danger would come later from us, not from nature. In tropical rainforests, colors bloomed across scales: emerald, gold, sapphire, black as oil. Camouflage and warning became intertwined, beauty born from survival. The shimmer of iridescence on a king cobra's hood was not vanity, but adaptation, breaking outlines in dappled light. Patterns coiled like poetry across their backs, fractals of evolution repeating through generations. By the Miocene epoch, snakes had conquered every continent but Antarctica. They slipped across savannas where early hominins walked upright for the first time. Fossils show their trails intertwined, predator and primate evolving side by side. Our eyes, scientists suspect, grew sharper, in part because of them, an ancient neurological alarm wired into our species by the necessity of awareness. Even now, the shape of a snake triggers instinctive attention faster than any other form. It is not fear, it is recognition. We have watched each other for a very long time. Over those shared ages, snakes became part of our mythology, symbols of wisdom, of danger, of transformation. They shed their skin, emerging renewed, and humans saw in that act a reflection of rebirth. In temples and dreams, they appeared as guardians, healers, or tricksters. Science would one day reveal the truth behind the symbolism. Shedding is a literal renewal, a way to grow without rupture, to stay clean of parasites, to keep moving forward. Even the myths carried a trace of biology. As the planet entered the present age, the lineage continued to branch. From island vipers to Arctic adders, from blind snakes that tunnel through soil to flying snakes that glide from tree to tree, diversity flourished. They occupy every temperature zone, every continent, every niche where a body can move and breathe. Some lay eggs, others live young. Some hunt alone. A few share winter dens, coiled together for warmth. The world may shift, climates may rise and fall, but wherever life can twist and endure, the serpent remains. And so the story that began in the mudflats of the Devonian ends here, with creatures that have outlived empires and asteroids alike. They are not relics of an ancient past. They are proof of adaptation, as quiet brilliance. Their strength lies not in aggression, but in design of form so balanced, it needs no improvement. Every heartbeat that echoes through their long bodies carries the memory of oceans, forests, deserts, and time itself. When one moves, it is the earth remembering how to flow. When the world cooled and glaciers crept from the poles, life drew inward to warmth. Forests shrank, grasslands widened, rivers slowed under the weight of ice. But even in those brittle centuries, snakes endured. Beneath stones and roots, they coiled in torpor, bodies slowing until heartbeats came minutes apart. They waited. Patience, always their oldest strength, became salvation once again. When the ice retreated, a new world unfolded. Vast plains glittered under strange skies. Continents had shifted. Migration routes lay open. From equatorial refuges, snakes began their quiet expansion. The same resilience that had carried them through extinction now fueled their conquest of climates. In deserts, they evolved heat-resistant scales that reflected sunlight. In swamps, they thickened their bodies, trading speed for power. Every environment sculpted a new variation of the same ancient design. The great constrictors of the tropics grew larger than any predator had since the age of dinosaurs. Boas and pythons reached lengths that defied belief, moving with the gravity of rivers. Their muscle fibers, coiling in opposite spirals, allowed strength in every direction, an engineering marvel written in flesh. Each movement drew energy from tension itself. Each breath was measured against the space of their prey. They were not hunters of rage, but of inevitability. In the deep night of the rainforest, their power was as silent as gravity. Elsewhere, evolution took another path. On hot plains, lighter-bodied snakes emerged, relying on speed and venom rather than weight. Among them, the vipers perfected strike mechanics that bordered on physics. Their heads flattened into aerodynamic wedges. Their fangs hinged forward in a fraction of a second. The venom they delivered was not merely toxic, it was targeted chemistry. Each molecule interfered with specific pathways of the body, paralyzing muscles, halting clotting, or stopping the heart entirely. For the snake, this efficiency meant survival. A meal caught swiftly meant less exposure to predators, less waste of energy. Evolution, ever economical, refined cruelty into precision. The elapids, cobras, mambas, kraits took venom even further. They shifted from ambush to pursuit, from patience to movement. Long, smooth bodies, fast reflexes, neurotoxins that acted on the mind rather than the muscle. A cobra's hood, flaring in a slow breath, is both defense and display, a signal saying, "I do not wish to kill, but I will if you insist." In that motion, power and restraint coexist. Every hiss is warning, not rage. Across oceans, island species became miracles of adaptation. Sea snakes returned fully to the water, their scales transformed into tiny hexagonal tiles that reduce drag. They give birth to leave young in open ocean, never touching land for generations. To breathe, they evolved skin that absorbs oxygen directly from water. A second set of lungs stretched the length of the body, and blood rich with carbonic anhydrase enzymes to handle gas exchange. They glide through coral reefs like ribbons of mercury, each movement a whisper of evolutionary memory. Reptile turned almost fish, yet neither completely. High in Asian forests, gliding snakes discovered another trick. By flattening their ribs outward, they turned their bodies into living airfoils. A leap from branch to branch becomes a slow-motion wave, each undulation adjusting lift. They do not truly fly, they fall beautifully. Physics bends around instinct, and instinct becomes art. While some lines mastered air and water, others withdrew underground. Blind snakes, thin as shoelaces, navigate by touch alone. Their eyes reduced to light-sensing spots beneath translucent scales, they feed on termite larvae and ant eggs, keeping insect colonies in balance. Few humans ever see them, yet they may outnumber all other snake species combined. In the unseen layers of the earth, they maintain the quiet equilibrium that keeps soil alive. And through all these transformations, the serpent's body remained astonishingly consistent. The blueprint, elongated spine, muscular waves, flexible skull, proved nearly perfect. Minor variations gave rise to enormous diversity, but the core idea never changed. Evolution found no reason to rewrite it. In nature, simplicity and success often walk the same path. As climates stabilized, snakes spread to every corner of the earth. They moved through deserts and mangroves, mountains and marshes, weaving invisible routes across continents. They arrived in Australia, an isolated land that would become their masterpiece. Here, freed from competition, venomous species exploded in number and potency. The inland taipan, now regarded as the most toxic snake on the planet, evolved in silence, its venom potent enough to fell 100 men with a single bite. Yet it remains shy, gentle, and almost never seen. Evolution, again, prefers precision to spectacle. Their variety became staggering. Some could survive months without food, slowing their metabolism until heartbeat and breath nearly vanished. Others hunted fish beneath ice sheets or rodents beneath desert dunes. There are snakes that mimic vines, snakes that imitate deadly species, snakes that play dead until the danger passes. The creativity of evolution writes endlessly through them. Every generation, another experiment in motion and restraint. Scientists studying their genomes find evidence of extraordinary genetic plasticity. Key developmental genes, known as Hox genes, are expressed differently along the body's axis, producing hundreds of vertebrae instead of dozens. These same genes, rearranged slightly, account for their limb loss. Forelimb regions silenced, hindlimb genes truncated but not deleted. It is a biological edit so elegant that it reshaped an entire body plan without breaking it. Even now, when embryologists examine the early development of snakes, they see ghostly buds of limbs forming, only to dissolve again before birth. Evolution remembers its drafts. What emerged from all this experimentation was not just a predator, but a symbol of adaptability itself. Snakes had become the quiet architects of ecosystems, controlling populations, dispersing nutrients, keeping balance in ways invisible but vital. Remove them, and ecosystems falter. They are the unseen regulators of life's excess. As humans expanded, our worlds collided. Sometimes we feared what we didn't understand. Sometimes we revered it. The serpent wound its way into every mythology: guardian, healer, destroyer, teacher. Its movement reminded us of water, of time, of death and renewal. Its silence taught us that survival can be soft, that danger can coexist with grace. Even in superstition, truth lingered. The snake endures by yielding. Even as civilizations rose and fell, the serpent remained close. It lived beneath our thresholds and among our crops, in our myths and medicines alike. Its pattern on sand and its stillness in grass became part of our language, our fears, and our dreams. Wherever humans built stories to explain the world, the snake slipped quietly into them. In ancient Egypt, it coiled around the sun god Ra, as both protector and adversary. Its endless looping symbolized eternity, the cycle of birth and return. In Greece, it entwined the staff of Asclepius, marking healing and medicine. In Mesoamerica, the feathered serpent Quetzalcoatl embodied wisdom and rebirth. Across cultures, it meant transformation because it changed its skin and seemed to begin again. Every civilization saw something eternal in that act. Beneath mythology, the biology was still at work. When a snake sheds, enzymes loosen the old keratin layers, allowing the new surface beneath to emerge clean and fresh. It is not pain, but release, not death, but continuity. What humans saw as mystical was simply life adapting to time, the pattern of the universe written once more in motion and renewal. Even today, that imagery persists in medicine as most universal emblem, the caduceus, two snakes winding around a staff balanced in perfect opposition. It represents health not as static perfection, but as dynamic balance, the same balance a snake holds as it moves, never rigid, always aware. The body heals not by force, but by flow. In the natural world, their contributions go deeper still. Ecologists studying food webs find snakes at pivotal points of stability. They regulate rodent populations, which in turn keeps crops and disease in check. Their presence shapes entire ecosystems quietly, invisibly. In fields where snakes are abundant, soil fertility rises, plant diversity increases, and the balance of insects stabilizes. Every coil beneath the surface carries consequence. Their silence is the maintenance of life itself. For scientists, snakes remain evolutionary marvels. Their organs, rearranged for narrow bodies, demonstrate flexibility unmatched among vertebrates. Their lungs stretch asymmetrically, one reduced, one elongated to fill the role of both. Their kidneys align in tandem. Their heart shifts position during digestion to accommodate swallowed prey. Every organ adapts to space and need. It is the anatomy of efficiency, nothing wasted, nothing fixed. And inside those bodies, new frontiers of study unfold. Venom, once feared, has become a treasure trove for pharmacology. From pit viper peptides, we have developed drugs that lower blood pressure and prevent clotting. From cobra toxins, we learn to control pain and muscle contraction. Each discovery refines what nature already perfected, molecular precision with minimal side effect. The serpent's sting, when understood, heals. As night deepens and the world quiets, you might imagine the planet breathing through its countless coiled forms beneath soil, beneath stone, beneath root and tide. They are the old pulse of the earth, moving unseen, reminding the surface of its depth. Every motion is measured, every pause deliberate. Even their rest feels like a form of thought. In modern cities, snakes still live quietly in the margins' garden walls, riverbanks, drainage tunnels, and forgotten lots. They are survivors, not of luck, but of design. While our world grows louder, theirs remains constant, a rhythm older than language, softer than fear. They do not challenge our presence. They simply continue as they always have. Their patience outlasts empires. There's something almost sacred in that endurance. Where humans chase speed, snakes trust stillness. Where we reach outward, they listen inward. And yet, both of us are driven by the same inheritance, the desire to adapt, to find balance in a changing world. Our stories diverge in form, but converge in purpose, to endure, to evolve, to remain. Perhaps that is why we dream of serpents when we dream of transformation. They represent what we cannot always express, the art of letting go, the wisdom of renewal. They remind us that to survive is to shed, again and again, whatever no longer fits. That evolution is not violence, but patience, not conquest, but adjustment. And that life, like the snake itself, never moves backward, it only finds new ways forward, quietly, gracefully, eternally. When the first snake slithered through primeval leaves, the world had not yet heard language or song. Now, millions of years later, their motion still speaks the same truth. That simplicity can hold complexity, that silence can carry power. And if you listen, even now, to the hush between breaths, you might feel it, the faint vibration of an ancient spine moving through time. The serpent is still with us, not a symbol of fear, but of continuity. A reminder that life never stops creating itself, even in the dark. If you could borrow a snake's senses for even a heartbeat, the world would feel utterly transformed. Light would dim to a soft haze. Sound would vanish almost completely. In its place, vibration and heat would bloom into focused currents of motion beneath the ground, invisible contours of warmth floating through the air. The planet would no longer seem solid, it would hum. Every step, every breath, every pulse around you would draw luminous paths across a field of silence. To a snake, this is reality. It lives in a universe built not from sight or sound, but from touch and temperature. Theirs is a sensory system tuned to the subtlest shifts, one that reads the world through tremor and chemistry. It is alien, yet astonishingly precise, an architecture of knowing shaped by hundreds of millions of years of stillness and listening. Beneath their skin, thousands of specialized receptors, mechanoreceptors, pick up the faintest vibrations from soil or air. A footfall of a mouse, the distant flutter of a bird landing on a branch, the rolling echo of thunder miles away, each translates into data. Their lower jaws, unfused at the chin, act like paired microphones, receiving ground waves through bone. When those signals meet in the skull, they form a kind of stereo map of motion. To a snake, direction is not seen but felt. From that foundation of touch arises an awareness so subtle that experiments struggle to capture it. In controlled chambers, scientists measure reactions to vibrations smaller than a millimeter in amplitude. Snakes respond instantly, lifting their heads, adjusting orientation, tongue flicking in confirmation. What we would call stillness is, to them, full of texture. Even the passing wind has its signature frequency, a whisper of moving air against scale. The tongue, flickering like a metronome, adds another layer of understanding. Each sweep collects molecules suspended in the air, guiding them toward the Jacobson S organ deep in the palate. There, sensory neurons decode not only what the scent is, but where it comes from. By alternating flicks left and right, a snake reads gradients, triangulating prey or mate with unerring accuracy. What appears as a simple motion, a dart of tongue, is in truth a calculation more complex than radar. In vipers, boas, and pythons, another sense deepens the map. Along the snout lie arrays of infrared-sensitive pits, tiny depressions lined with membranes so thin they respond to changes of heat as small as 0.003 C. Every living thing radiates warmth, and through those pits, the snake sees it not as color, but as brightness. A mouse scurrying through grass glows like a miniature sun. A predator's shadow registers as a patch of cool darkness. The result is a vision of energy itself, the world written in thermal calligraphy. When neuroscientists studied the brain regions that interpret these signals, they found something remarkable. The same neural circuits that process visible light in other animals handle infrared in snakes. Evolution repurposed an existing system, not by adding organs, but by transforming meaning. The snake doesn't see with eyes alone. It sees through temperature. It perceives life by the heat it gives away. This quiet gift gives them a kind of omniscience in darkness. They move through the night as if it were daylight, guided by gradients of warmth that never lie. For the predator, it means precision. For the snake, it means certainty. There is no need to hurry or chase. Everything comes into view eventually, glowing softly in the dark. Such perception creates a unique form of intelligence, one born from patience rather than problem solving. A snake's mind does not race ahead, it synchronizes. Its awareness expands outward until the environment itself becomes an extension of thought. When it waits in ambush, it is not idle. It is listening through the ground, feeling time move. Predation in this light is not aggression, but alignment. When the strike comes, it is an answer, not a decision. Behavioral studies reveal patterns that suggest memory and learning woven through instinct. Captive snakes trained to find warm targets remember locations long after the heat source is removed. Individuals recognize regular feeding cues and adjust anticipation accordingly. Some species even develop preferences, choosing one side of an enclosure or a particular shelter consistently. They do not reason as we do, but their behavior shows an understanding deeper than reflex. In the wild, this intelligence takes quieter forms. A boa may revisit the same ambush site at the same season year after year, timing its presence to the migration of prey. Pit vipers adjust strike angles based on terrain, changing tactics to account for wind direction or cover. Sea snakes navigate reefs with routes so consistent that divers can identify individuals by their paths. These are not accidents of instinct, they are habits of memory, practiced through generations. To live this way requires a mind tuned to calm. Snakes burn energy sparingly. Their metabolism, low and steady, supports hours or even days of motionless waiting. In that stillness, perception deepens. Every vibration, every scent, every breath becomes information. In a sense, snakes are the perfect meditative creatures, fully present, never distracted, endlessly responsive to what is. Their survival depends not on control, but on harmony with the immediate. And perhaps this is why, despite their reputation, there is something profoundly peaceful about them. A snake in rest radiates composure. Its coils rise and fall like tides. Its tongue tests the air. Its eyes remain half-veiled by scales. It does not fidget or flee. It trusts the balance of its environment, the precision of its senses, the reliability of its rhythm. For all its silence, it embodies confidence. Not the confidence of strength, but of belonging. To understand the mind of a snake, one must first accept that awareness comes in many shapes. Some creatures think in bursts of language, others in pictures or emotion. The snake thinks in sensation. Each vibration, each flick of the tongue, each subtle gradient of heat composes its reality. Its consciousness is woven from physicality, the body as mind, perception as thought. When you watch a snake at rest, it might seem still, almost empty. But this stillness hums with perception. Every fiber of muscle is listening. Every cell is tuned to the world's faintest tremor. It is not waiting for something to happen. It is happening continuously as part of its surroundings. The distinction between snake and environment dissolves into one flowing experience of being. This is not ignorance, it is immersion. Even communication, long thought absent, from their lives reveals subtlety upon closer study. They do not sing or roar or display feathers, but snakes do speak through motion, posture, and scent. When one raises its head or flattens its neck, it is not anger but signal. I am aware. I am prepared. When two snakes coil together in mating or combat, the patterns of pressure and movement become a tactile conversation. They read each other through rhythm instead of voice, the way wind speaks through leaves. Some species, like rattlesnakes, developed a literal language of warning, a mechanical sound evolved not from aggression, but from mercy. The rattle is not a threat, it is a plea for distance. It gives predators time to reconsider, to step back without violence. Few animals announce themselves so honestly. In that sound lies wisdom, confrontation avoided, life preserved. Even their colors carry meaning. Vibrant bands of red, yellow, and black warn of venom to come, while gentle browns and greens whisper camouflage. A predator who learns once remembers forever. The message spreads through generations. Communication need not be loud to be effective, it only needs to be consistent. The snake speaks softly, but the world listens. For all their restraint, snakes do display emotion if emotion is defined as the capacity to react meaningfully to the world. They experience comfort and agitation, calm and stress. When handled gently, they slow their breathing and rest in the warmth of another being. When startled, they tighten or flee. Their nervous systems register familiarity and safety, not as affection in our sense, but as trust of physiological ease. To be calm in the presence of another is, in its own way, love. Field researchers who spend years among them begin to notice individuality. One python may always choose the same branch, another prefers the ground. Some approach cautiously, others explore with curiosity. Over time, these tendencies remain consistent. They may not have personality in the human sense, but they have character, subtle, persistent, unmistakable. It is the quiet persistence of identity that lingers even in silence. In this deep awareness lies an intelligence older than thought. The snake is not calculating outcomes. it is participating in them. When it strikes, the action and perception are one fluid gesture, no gap between intention and movement. There is a kind of perfection in that unity. Humans spend lifetimes seeking such alignment through meditation, art, or discipline. The snake simply is it. For scientists, their behavior continues to challenge assumption. Studies of problem solving show snakes capable of spatial memory and decision-making. Given mazes, they learn routes by touch. Given obstacles, they find alternate paths. When environments change, they adjust movement patterns to compensate. In their simplicity lies adaptability, a form of intelligence that flows rather than plans. In ecosystems, this quiet intelligence shapes everything around them. A snake never wastes energy. It moves only when needed. Predators that hunt them must become more careful. Prey that evade them become faster. Through this dance of tension and restraint, evolution continues. Even in inaction, the serpent teaches adaptation. It reminds the living world that survival is not struggle, but balance. To share space with a snake is to enter that balance for a moment. You can feel it if you are still enough, the calm, steady breathing of the creature beside you, its presence neither threatening nor fearful. It does not need to prove its power or display its purpose. It knows the rhythm of its life and keeps to it. In that presence, time slows. An ancient patience settles into the air, as if the world itself exhales. Perhaps this is the truest legacy of snakes, not just their evolutionary success, but the lesson they embody. They show that awareness can be simple, that strength can be silent, that survival can be graceful. They are evolution's meditation, endlessly refined until nothing more was needed. Every scale, every movement, every pause is the result of patience perfected. So when you picture them sliding through grass under the low gold of evening, or curled beneath stone as rain begins to fall, see them not as symbols of danger, but as reminders of balance. Theirs is not the chaos of nature, but its order. They are the line between fear and stillness, between motion and rest. And though their world may seem separate from ours, we are connected by the same slow pulse of life, the same long, quiet journey through time. Every predator carries within it the story of its prey. Every prey carries the ghost of its hunter. They evolve together, an endless dialogue written in speed, stealth, and survival. For snakes, this dialogue became one of nature's most intricate conversations, an arms race measured not in claws or teeth, but in molecules and reflexes. Long ago, when snakes first developed venom, the world around them responded in kind. Rodents, birds, frogs, and lizards all adapted to recognize and resist. Over time, this struggle wove complexity into both lineages. Venom grew stronger, resistance grew cleverer. Each generation refined its chemistry, like composers perfecting rival symphonies, each responding note for note to the other's melody. Scientists studying these relationships describe them as co-evolutionary spirals, feedback loops of adaptation that never truly end. In one direction flows venom innovation, in the other, immunity. In both directions, life advances. The snake's genome expands to accommodate new toxins, while its prey alters receptors to block them. Every mutation, successful or not, writes another bar in the endless score of survival. Among snakes, venom is as varied as language. Some concoctions target the nervous system neurotoxins that halt transmission, freezing motion in an instant. Others attack blood, rupturing vessels and clotting the flow. Still others dismantle tissue itself, liquefying muscle to ease digestion. Each formula is a recipe refined through time, perfected by trial and error. It is the poetry of chemistry, written in enzymes and amino acids. What fascinates biologists most is that many venom genes began as ordinary digestive enzymes. Evolution didn't create new materials from scratch, it borrowed. Proteins that once broke down food inside the gut were repurposed for use in fangs. They shifted from internal digestion to external, from function to weapon. It's a reminder that innovation often hides in reinterpretation. Nature is a master recycler, never wasteful, always imaginative. For the prey, defense required equal creativity. Some rodents evolved serum proteins that neutralized toxins, binding them before they reached vital tissues. Others developed faster metabolisms, allowing their hearts to outpace paralysis. Even behaviors changed. Mice that learned to freeze when they felt air move. Birds that took flight at the faintest vibration. The environment itself joined the dance, shaping instinct and structure alike. Through every adaptation, the ecosystem tuned itself closer to balance. Venomous snakes, far from destabilizing life, became regulators of it. By limiting populations of small mammals and birds, they prevented overconsumption of seeds and insects. In turn, this allowed forests and grasslands to maintain equilibrium. The bite of a viper, terrifying in isolation, is harmony when seen from above. Each drop of venom is part of the planet's economy of control, a currency of balance spent with exquisite precision. The arms race didn't stop at biology. It reached behavior, intelligence, and even emotion. Predators grew cautious, not reckless. Prey became observant, not panicked. Both sides learned timing, when to act, when to freeze, when to listen. Through this subtle dialogue of survival, calm emerged as a form of wisdom. In the wild, anxiety wastes energy. Patience saves it. And in that truth, snakes became masters of energy itself. Among vipers, patience reached near perfection. Hidden under leaves or half buried in sand, they could wait for hours, sometimes days, for a single strike. During that time, their hearts slowed, metabolism dipped, and muscles held still without fatigue. Each coil, each breath, each flick of tongue existed in harmony with the earth beneath. When the prey finally wandered close, the strike unfolded not as choice, but inevitability, an instant where stillness became motion, the quiet turned sharp, and just as quickly, calm returned. The act completed, the snake resumed its stillness, as if nothing had happened at all. Boa constrictors and pythons evolved a different art: control through pressure. Their muscles read feedback directly from prey. Tension adjusts automatically to the slowing heartbeat. No excess, no waste. It is not violence, but precision. A dance where one rhythm fades into another, life exchanging with life. Even in predation, there is symmetry. When scientists measure the energy, efficiency of these methods, they find that snakes expend less than 1/10 the effort of comparable predators. Their entire existence is an ode to conservation of movement, of metabolism, of sound. To be still until the perfect moment is not laziness, it is mastery. The world's noise rushes past them, yet they remain, waiting for balance to return. In tropical ecosystems, their influence reaches far beyond the immediate. A single python in a wetland may determine how many birds nest, how many fish breed, how many insects thrive. Remove that python, and equilibrium shatters prey. Populations surge, resources strain, disease spreads. Predators are not intrusions, they are architecture. Every fang, every coil, every patient ambush contributes to the invisible scaffolding of the world. Even the soil feels their touch. As they move, their bodies press pathways through grass and leaf litter, aerating the surface, stirring nutrients. Burrows abandoned by snakes become homes for insects and mammals. Their presence circulates life as surely as wind circulates air. Each motion, though unseen, reshapes the texture of an ecosystem. The more closely we look, the more their simplicity reveals design. To study snakes, then, is to study the quiet mathematics of balance. Their entire existence is proof that evolution does not chase chaos, it corrects it. Wherever imbalance appears, life adapts to restore flow. The serpent is not a symbol of danger, but of calibration, the steady pulse that holds nature in place. It moves through the world like a needle through fabric, sewing equilibrium into the seams of the living. As the dance between predator and prey matured, its effects rippled outward. Forests thickened in response to what snakes controlled. Birdsong patterns changed with shifting numbers of rodents. Even insect populations followed new rhythms, their abundance balanced by the quiet work of unseen coils in the grass. It was not domination that shaped the world, it was restraint. Snakes never ruled their environments through numbers. They ruled through balance. One serpent could influence a forest the way gravity influences an orbit subtly, but decisively. And in this long silence of influence, evolution continued to fine-tune its masterpiece. The form of the snake, perfected over millions of years, became a platform for endless variation. Some, like the tree-dwelling green mambas, evolved aerodynamic grace thin as rope, moving like whispers through leaves. Others, like the burrowing sand boas, became cylinders of muscle built for invisible lives beneath the earth. Each found a niche where patience met purpose. Every movement, every adaptation, was another step toward balance. When humans first began to appear across Africa and Asia, we entered a world already refined by serpentine patience. Our ancestors learned to read the subtle signs of danger, the pattern of scales half buried in dust, the stillness too perfect to be chance. Those who noticed lived longer. Those who ignored did not. Through countless generations, the fear of snakes became encoded in us, not as hatred, but as respect. It was evolution teaching caution through memory. That reflex, though primal, also carried fascination. The more we learned to avoid snakes, the more we began to admire them. Their grace, their calm, their efficiency, all qualities we aspired to in moments of stillness and strategy. In their ability to wait and strike with precision, we saw echoes of intelligence. We mimicked them in art, in dance, in philosophy. The serpent became not only something to fear, but something to emulate. Across early cultures, this reverence deepened. In the temples of Mesopotamia, serpents adorned altars as guardians of knowledge. In India, they became the Nagas, half divine, half earthly, beings of wisdom who connected the material to the spiritual. In Greece, the shedding of skin symbolized immortality. In Africa, rebirth. Even in the Bible, where the snake's role turned dark, it still carried the burden of awareness, the creature that understood truth before humans did. We have never been able to separate snakes from knowledge, nor knowledge from danger. This paradox runs deep in our biology. When neuroscientists scan human brains, they find that the amygdala, our center of fear, responds faster to the image of a snake than to any other shape. It is an ancient reflex, written into us long before language. But what's remarkable is that, alongside fear, comes attention. Snakes do not merely frighten us, they focus us. Our minds sharpen in their presence, awareness heightens, breath slows. It is as if evolution built them into our consciousness to remind us to pay attention to the ground, to the moment, to the unseen. In this way, snakes have trained us, even as we have hunted them. Their existence refines our perception. They force us to see the world more carefully, to move more deliberately. They make mindfulness instinctual, and in return, we have given them a place in our myths and medicine, our warnings and our wisdom. They are the mirror in nature that reflects our own need for balance. Modern science continues to uncover their gifts. Venom, once a symbol of death, has become a source of healing. From pit viper venom came drugs that revolutionized hypertension treatment. From coral snakes, proteins that guide nerve regeneration. From rattlesnakes, enzymes that help dissolve blood clots and extend life. Each breakthrough is evolution's apology, danger transformed into cure. The very chemistry that once killed now saves. Nature, when understood, always reveals symmetry. And yet, for all our progress, snakes remain elusive. Even today, new species are discovered in jungles, deserts, and mountains, each with its own evolutionary signature, its own quiet story written in scales. Their diversity defies easy categorization. Their adaptability challenges our sense of mastery. They exist at the edge of what we can know, familiar enough to touch, mysterious enough to humble us. If you listen at night in a forest, you can sometimes hear it, the faint sliding whisper through fallen leaves, the soft shift of earth as something ancient passes. It is not threatening, it is grounding. That sound has existed longer than birdsong, longer than our words for fear or beauty. It is the sound of patience moving. The same patience that once shaped ecosystems now shapes understanding. The serpent's legacy is not one of menace, but of continuity. Every era, every civilization, every discovery has found them waiting, watching quietly as the world changes. They do not resist time, they accompany it. And in their unhurried presence lies a truth we keep forgetting. That survival belongs not to the fastest or the fiercest, but to the most balanced. They have taught the planet this lesson for over 100 million years. So when you think of evolution, think not of violence or struggle, but of calm adaptation, the art of becoming what the world needs next. Snakes mastered that art long before us. They shed what doesn't serve them, move only when it matters, and rest fully when it doesn't. They live in harmony with entropy itself. They are not fighting time, they are flowing through it. And maybe that's the final secret hidden in their silence. That all the complexity of life competition, fear, change, can be met not with noise, but with composure. That every challenge can be answered by stillness. That to endure, one must listen. The serpent has always known this, and if we slow down long enough, we might hear it too, the ancient rhythm under everything, steady, endless, alive. Long before humans, before mammals, even before birds took flight, the first ancestors of snakes began their slow transformation. It started not with a leap, but with a narrowing. A spine grew longer, legs grew smaller. A body once built to walk began to flow. What had been a lizard became a line of motion, an idea stretched thin until it became something entirely new. The world then looked nothing like ours. It was the late Jurassic and early Cretaceous, an age of giants and swamps, where ferns reached the size of trees and insects buzzed like tiny aircraft. The continents were shifting, seas spilling across lowlands, creating humid, tangled ecosystems full of opportunity. And somewhere in that world, a few small reptiles began to explore life beneath the surface. In the soil and leaf litter, they found safety from predators, coolness from the sun, and endless prey in the form of insects and worms. To move there efficiently, legs became a hindrance. Each limb snagged on roots, slowed progress, broke the rhythm. And so, evolution began its slow, patient edit. At first, it was subtle. The bones of the hips shrank, the shoulders loosened. Ribs grew longer and more numerous, giving flexibility to a body that could twist and compress. The spine and engineering marvel multiplied vertebrae until it numbered in the hundreds. Each bone could move independently, yet cooperatively, creating the illusion of fluidity. The creature no longer walked, it rippled. And with that motion, the serpent was born not suddenly, but gradually, over millions of quiet years. In limestone beds scattered across the world, paleontologists have uncovered fossils that capture this transformation mid-step. One of the most famous is Najash rionegrina, discovered in the Patagonia region of Argentina. It dates to nearly 100 million years ago. Its skull was distinctly serpentine, yet it still bore tiny hind limbs, remnants of a past that hadn't quite let go. They were not legs for walking, but ghosts of motion, symbols of an evolutionary halfway point. To see them is to witness transition itself, frozen in rock. Another fossil, Tetrapodophus, found in Brazil, stirred even greater wonder. Its body was long and flexible like a snake's, but its limbs' four small, delicate appendages remained. They were functional, perhaps for gripping prey or stabilizing movement underground. Scientists still debate its classification, but its existence proves something essential. Evolution is not a straight line. It is a river with many branches, and snakes flowed down several before finding their final form. Over time, the limbs disappeared entirely, but their echoes lingered in the snake's body. Even today, many species retain vestigial bones buried deep near the pelvis, tiny spurs where legs once grew. Boas and pythons still carry these relics, like signatures from ancestors written beneath their skin. They serve no purpose now, except to remind us that change is patient and incomplete. Evolution does not erase, it repurposes. The past remains, folded into the present. As snakes refined their movement, the earth itself transformed. Oceans rose and fell, continents drifted apart, climates shifted. Through it all, snakes adapted, exploring new habitats with quiet precision. Some became swimmers, undulating through shallow seas in search of fish and eels. Others burrowed deeper into soil, trading sunlight for the safety of darkness. Each habitat sculpted new strengths. In water, tails flattened to guide motion. On land, muscles thickened to push against rough ground. Underground, scales smoothed, eyes shrank, and jaws strengthened for digging. Every adjustment brought the form closer to perfection. By the late Cretaceous, around 66 million years ago, snakes had spread across nearly every environment. Then came the catastrophe, the asteroid that struck the Yucatan, erasing most of the planet's large reptiles. Dinosaurs vanished, but snakes, small and secretive, endured. Their underground shelters shielded them from fire and ash. Their simple diets and slow metabolisms carried them through famine. In the silence after extinction, when the air itself tasted of dust, snakes emerged into a world reborn. They did not seize dominance with force, but with persistence. Their gift had never been power, it was patience. From those survivors came the ancestors of every modern species. Their world was empty, but opportunity hummed in the emptiness. New forests rose. Mammals began to scurry through undergrowth. Birds took to the skies. And beneath it all, the snake continued its quiet experiment in motion. Some grew longer, others thicker, a few smaller. Venom appeared again and again, refined and perfected through convergent evolution. Fangs emerged from ordinary teeth, reshaped by nature as steady hand into hollow syringes of efficiency. In the space of a few million years, the serpents we know today began to take shape. Scientists trace their success to a single evolutionary advantage: flexibility. The elongated body plan proved infinitely adaptable. Where other creatures specialized into narrow niches, snakes remained generalists, able to thrive in almost any condition. Desert, swamp, mountain, forest, ocean, each became another verse in the same long song of survival. That flexibility wasn't just physical, it was behavioral. Snakes could fast for months, slow their hearts to conserve energy, or accelerate metabolism when prey was abundant. Their existence became a masterclass in adaptation, a living demonstration of evolution's core principle. Change only as much as you must, but never stop listening. In fossils, we see this listening preserved. Vertebrae arranged in hypnotic repetition, jawbones designed to unhinge, to swallow whole what could not be torn, teeth recurved to prevent escape. Every detail optimized, yet elegant in simplicity. There are no wasted parts in a snake's anatomy, only refinement. And as paleontologists continue to unearth their history, new mysteries appear. Some fossils hint at early snakes that lived in marine environments, others in forests or deserts. Their diversity, even in prehistory, suggests one truth above all. Snakes were never experiments waiting for perfection. They were perfection in progress. Every age simply gave them another opportunity to express it. When the fires of the great extinction dimmed and the ash settled into the sea, the world exhaled. Forests grew again where craters once burned. Rain carved new rivers through plains of stone, and in the silence left behind, the survivors began their slow work of restoration. Among them, snakes moved unseen, small, silent, unhurried. They had no need to roar or rush. Their strength lay in waiting for the world to become habitable again. From the shadow of catastrophe, evolution began its next experiment. The earth was now ruled by mammals and birds, creatures of warmth and speed. But under the roots and behind the rocks, snakes remained. They thrived in absence, in stillness, in the quiet places where light barely touched. It was here, in the forgotten edges of the New World, that their story deepened. The early Paleocene period saw them spread outward again, across continents reconnected by shifting land bridges. Fossils from Morocco, India, and North America show snakes reclaiming every possible niche. In the tropics, some grew immense. The most extraordinary of them was Titanoboa cerreonensis, discovered in a Colombian coal mine. It stretched nearly 13 meters long and weighed over a ton thicker than a human torso, longer than a bus. Its size alone defied imagination, yet it wasn't monstrous. It was simply the logical result of a world warmer than ours, where vast jungles pulsed with life and prey was abundant. In that heat, snakes grew as large as rivers. Titanoboa ruled its time not through aggression, but through inevitability. With each slow undulation through the swamp, it rearranged the ecosystem around it. Crocodiles, turtles, and giant fish adapted to its presence, evolving new strategies of survival. When it finally disappeared, the world cooled. The giants vanished. But their smaller descendants carried the memory forward, the same jaw structure, the same musculature, the same patient intelligence refined into subtlety. The world no longer needed giants, it needed precision. And snakes, ever adaptive, obliged. In the millions of years that followed, their diversity exploded. Venom evolved independently in multiple lineages. Constriction refined into an art form. Some species, like the early colubrids, took to open forests and developed agility rather than brute strength. Others specialized in stealth pit vipers with heat-sensing pits, cobras with flared hoods to deter predators before a strike was necessary. Each adaptation represented a choice made not by thought, but by time itself. Nature was sculpting not just bodies, but philosophies of survival. Meanwhile, the continents continued their slow drift apart. Snakes crossed oceans on floating vegetation, colonizing islands thousands of miles from any mainland. Some became dwarfed in isolation, shrinking to fit their new ecosystems. Others, free from predators, grew larger, their colors brightening into electric patterns of yellow, red, and green. Evolution, now playing without boundaries, painted in variations of scale and hue. Each island, each forest, each dune became a verse in a global poem about adaptation. But the most remarkable change wasn't physical, it was behavioral. As prey grew smarter and faster, snakes evolved more sophisticated ways to read their environment. Their brains, once thought primitive, revealed complexity in structure and pattern. Certain regions enlarged to process thermal and chemical data, others to control subtle motor functions. The result was a creature capable of astonishing precision, able to strike at the exact moment a heartbeat faltered in the air. Not through sight or sound, but through the invisible geometry of vibration and heat. In these quiet adaptations, snakes began to mirror the balance of nature itself. They became its regulators, its hidden governors. They controlled the populations of small mammals, curbing diseases before they spread. They shaped the behavior of birds, rodents, and even insects indirectly through fear and memory. In their silence, they structured the world's noise. Ecosystems with snakes flourished. Those without them fell into imbalance. This pattern, repeated across continents and ages, marked them as one of life's essential designs. And yet, despite their success, snakes never abandoned humility. They did not evolve wings or claws, did not grow armor or fur. Their greatest defense remained simplicity. A body capable of folding, bending, climbing, swimming, burrowing. A skeleton that could twist without breaking. Muscles that could act in waves instead of bursts. Even their eyes, covered by transparent scales, required no blinking, no maintenance. They were built not for spectacle, but for eternity. When paleontologists lay out their fossils in long glass cases, they see not just bones, but philosophy. The same repeated vertebrae, the same jaw joints designed to open impossibly wide, the same ribs that protect, propel, and breathe in a single movement. It's as though evolution, in designing the first snake, found a pattern so perfect it never had to start over. And for over 100 million years, that pattern has endured. Every age has tested it: fire, flood, cold, catastrophe. And each time, the serpent has simply adapted, adjusting angle, size, and strategy, but never identity. It doesn't resist change, it absorbs it. It does not dominate, it endures. That is the genius of its design. And even now, in the modern world, the same body that first slid beneath Cretaceous ferns still moves through our gardens and jungles, our deserts and dreams. It connects the living world to the ancient one like a thread that never broke. To watch a snake move today is to glimpse the same motion that rippled through prehistoric swamps under the gaze of dinosaurs. It is time itself made visible. The fossils, the bones, the shimmering bodies, they all tell the same story. Evolution's masterpiece was not the biggest or the fastest creature, but the most patient one. The one that could disappear into silence, move without sound, and change without losing itself. That is the legacy of the serpent continuity. And that continuity still lives, sliding through our world as quietly as the first heartbeat of creation. By the dawn of the Miocene epoch, roughly 23 million years ago, the world had grown familiar again. Forests stretched from horizon to horizon, vast savannas shimmered under golden light, and the air was thick with the hum of insects and the cries of newly evolved mammals. The chaos of the ancient world had calmed, but under that calm, snakes thrived. They had become quiet masters of nearly every landscape on Earth. The continents now carried their distinct families, each shaped by geography, climate, and the peculiar demands of survival. In Africa, vipers and cobras honed the dual arts of stealth and spectacle. The puff adder, heavy-bodied and still as stone, learned to vanish completely into dry grass, striking only when opportunity brushed too close. Nearby, the cobra took another path: visibility. Its hood, flared in soft warning, was evolution's first act of mercy, a gesture that said, "I am dangerous, but I do not wish to harm." Two philosophies of power, side by side: invisibility and revelation. In Asia, the forests echoed with the quiet glide of pythons and kraits. The pythons grew immense, muscles flowing beneath iridescent skin. They learned to coil around branches, waiting in ambush for creatures far stronger than themselves. They did not chase, they anticipated. Theirs was a strength that moved like breath. The kraits, smaller but deadlier, became nocturnal hunters, their venom a symphony of neurotoxins refined over millennia. They hunted in silence, guided by heat and scent, their strikes as precise as falling rain. Across the oceans, in the Americas, evolution took its own poetic direction. Here, the rattlesnake found its voice. Among dry stones and open plains, sound carried far and fast. The rattle became a language of caution, an invention born of compassion as much as defense. Few creatures announce their dangers so clearly before striking, and yet the rattlesnake always does. Its warning hums through desert air like a pulse, both terrifying and strangely gentle, a reminder that even lethal creatures can choose patience. Farther south, in the humid jungles, boa constrictors carried the legacy of ancient giants. They swam through rivers like living currents, climbing trees with deliberate grace, hunting monkeys and birds by moonlight. Their strength was slow, even beautiful. When they constricted, they felt the heartbeat of the forest through their prey. The rhythm of life and death joined in one continuous flow. And beneath the soil, blind snakes continued their quiet work. They tunneled through roots and humus, their small scales polished by sand, their bodies gliding through the dark like threads of mercury. They fed on ants and termites, invisible custodians of the earth as balance. Even now, they remain the most numerous snakes alive, billions of tiny, unseen engineers, maintaining the quiet architecture of the ground beneath our feet. By this time, snakes had fully embraced diversity as a survival strategy. Venomous and non-venomous, arboreal and aquatic, Massive and minute, they had filled every available niche. Evolution had given them countless forms, but one spirit: economy. Never excess, never waste. Every adaptation was a response to necessity, and necessity alone. It is perhaps this humility, this restraint, that allowed them to survive where so many species faltered. Their physiology remained one of evolution's finest achievements. The snake's body, though elongated, hides an extraordinary complexity. Its spine, composed of up to 400 vertebrae, moves like a living chain. Each joint carries a pair of ribs, connected by flexible muscles that twist and compress in coordinated waves. This is why their motion seems fluid, because it is not made of steps, but of continuous, distributed effort. Where a mammal's motion begins in limbs, a snake's begins everywhere. It moves not through force, but through flow. Inside, its organs are arranged like verses in a poem, sequential, efficient, unhurried. One lung extended, the other diminished. Kidneys placed one behind the other to fit the narrow frame. Heart free-floating to accommodate swallowed prey. Every detail is a compromise that became perfection. There is no symmetry in a snake's design, yet the asymmetry itself is balanced. It is nature's geometry expressed as grace. Their senses, too, continue to evolve toward mastery. Heat pits refined, tongues became more sensitive to trace chemicals, and eyesight sharpened for movement rather than detail. Snakes do not need to see the shape of their world, they only need to feel its rhythm. And that rhythm, over millions of years, they learned better than any other creature alive. But perhaps the most astonishing adaptation came not from anatomy, but from strategy. Snakes began to rely on deception as an evolutionary tool. Some non-venomous species evolved to mimic the colors and patterns of deadly ones, borrowing terror as protection. A harmless king snake, draped in red, black, and yellow, could move through a jungle untouched, simply because others had learned the language of danger. Mimicry became their shield, fear their camouflage. It was not aggression that made them powerful, it was understanding. Through this subtle artistry, snakes turned survival into a performance of calm precision. Every strike was timed, every stillness deliberate. They hunted not with fury, but with focus, an almost meditative patience that few animals could match. Their world was not one of chase, but of waiting, each breath measured, each heartbeat attuned to opportunity. In this way, snakes evolved not just as predators, but as philosophers of movement, teaching the ecosystem what it means to be present. As millions of years passed, their forms became familiar to early humans. The first hominins, walking barefoot through savannas and forests, met them often, sometimes in fear, sometimes in awe. They learned to recognize the shimmer of scales, the stillness before motion, the soft hiss that preceded silence. In those encounters, something ancient stirred: recognition. Both species were watchers, hunters, survivors. Both understood patience and timing. The snake was not alien to us, it was a mirror. When early humans painted the first images on cave walls, some of those images were serpentine, curved lines winding through ochre and ash. Perhaps they symbolized rivers, perhaps danger, perhaps wisdom. Whatever they meant, they survived millennia, suggesting one truth. We remembered the serpent because we saw ourselves in it. When humanity began to dream, it dreamed of serpents. They wound through our myths before our languages had names for them. Across continents, across cultures, the symbol appeared again and again, a coiled line, an endless curve. the shape of eternity itself. To ancient minds, the snake was not just an animal, it was the breath beneath creation. In Mesopotamia, long before writing reached its elegance, clay tablets carried stories of Ningishzida, the serpent god of life and rebirth. His symbol, two snakes winding around a staff, would one day become the caduceus, the emblem of medicine and healing. Even then, people understood that the same creature capable of killing could also represent restoration. In its venom lay both danger and cure. In its shedding of skin, the promise of renewal. It was not contradiction, it was balance. In Egypt, the serpent guarded both crown and underworld. The uraeus, a cobra carved in gold, rose from the brow of pharaohs, its flared hood symbolizing divine protection. To be watched by the serpent was to be guarded by eternity. And yet, in the same breath, the great serpent Apophis represented chaos, the endless struggle of darkness against light. The Egyptians understood something profound, that creation and destruction are twins, forever entwined. In India, snakes became sacred beings of wisdom, the Nagas. Neither good nor evil, they lived between worlds, their coils connecting sky, earth, and water. Temples were built to honor them, offerings left at doorways to ensure harmony. They were teachers disguised as creatures, their silence holding lessons on patience, humility, and power without pride. The Greeks gave us another lens, the serpent as transformation. When Asclepius, god of medicine, carried his staff entwined with a snake, it symbolized the healing process itself, the shedding of sickness, the renewal of life. To this day, the medical emblem retains that echo. The snake became humanity's earliest metaphor for change. Even in the Americas, where civilizations rose in isolation, the serpent appeared once more. The Aztecs worshipped Quetzalcoatl, the feathered serpent, who taught humanity knowledge and peace before vanishing into the horizon. To the Maya, he was Kukulkan, the divine wind, both seen and unseen. To them, serpents were not creatures of the earth, but bridges between heaven and soil, between the body and the spirit. Every culture, every corner of the world, found the same meaning written differently in scales and silence. And yet, for all this reverence, there was also fear. The serpent tempted, guarded, tested. In the earliest pages of human religion, the snake became a paradox, both the whisper of wisdom and the shadow of deceit. In the Hebrew scriptures, it offered knowledge at the cost of innocence. But perhaps that was never truly punishment. Perhaps it was the first lesson of awareness, that to see clearly is to lose comfort, that truth and danger are never far apart. In all these stories, one thread persists, the serpent as the keeper of boundaries, between life and death, between healing and harm, between knowledge and mystery. It exists where opposites meet. Even science, when it finally arrived, would rediscover that same truth venom as both poison and medicine, the snake as both threat and teacher. Myth was only ever metaphor for what nature already knew. As humanity learned to farm, to build, to travel, our relationship with snakes shifted again. They followed our settlements, hunting the rodents that came with grain. They became uninvited allies in pest control, guardians of granaries, unseen protectors of harvests. Yet fear lingered. Their silence unnerved us. Their motion defied our logic. To kill a snake became a reflex, one born not of necessity, but of misunderstanding. Still, even as fear spread, fascination never died. Healers in ancient Greece and Rome kept snakes in their temples, believing their touch brought restoration. In Africa, snake dances mimic the rhythms of life and rebirth. In China, the Year of the Snake celebrated intelligence, intuition, and transformation. Even in Christianity, where the serpent once symbolized temptation, it later returned as the emblem of resurrection, the bronze serpent of Moses, raised to heal the afflicted. Humanity could never quite separate itself from the serpent's dual nature. The deeper our knowledge grew, the more our awe returned. Modern biology revealed the marvel of their design, the grace in their simplicity, the sophistication of their senses. Herpetologists discovered that their venom wasn't random but beautifully targeted. Each compound evolved for purpose. Chemists isolated enzymes from vipers that could dissolve clots or relax arteries. Doctors learned to harness their power for healing, completing the oldest mythic circle. Death turned to life once again. And still, when we meet a snake in the wild, something ancient stirs inside us. Our breath catches, heart quickens, muscles tense. It is not just fear, it is recognition. We are looking into a mirror polished by time, seeing the part of ourselves that remembers silence, patience, and motion without waste. The serpent does not chase. It waits. It listens. It moves when the world aligns. And somewhere deep inside, we know this rhythm. It's the rhythm of survival, the same rhythm that carried us both from the same ancestral spark millions of years ago. So when the snake appears in your path, perhaps it isn't a warning, but an invitation to slow down, to listen to the earth beneath your feet, to remember that movement need not be frantic, and danger need not be loud. It is the oldest teacher of calm, its lessons written not in words, but in the soft press of scales against soil. The serpent has walked beside humanity since the dawn of awareness, not as an enemy, not as a god, but as a reminder that power and peace are not opposites. They are the same force, measured differently. And the snake, in all its silence, has always known how to hold both. If you watch a snake move across sand, it looks effortless. The body glides, curves unfolding like ripples in slow water. No sound, no footsteps, no disturbance, just flow. It seems almost impossible that so much control, so much coordination could exist in silence. But within that silence lies one of nature's greatest feats of engineering. The secret of the snake's movement begins with its spine. Unlike ours, rigid and limited, the snake's skeleton is a masterpiece of repetition. Hundreds of vertebrae line up like beads on an invisible thread, each connected to the next by flexible joints. Attached to each are a pair of ribs, slender yet strong, giving structure without stiffness. When muscles between these ribs contract in a wave, the body moves forward, sideways or upward, each motion calculated, each curve a precise response to the surface beneath. Every scale acts like a grip, catching texture for an instant before releasing it. It is motion through harmony rather than force. There are many kinds of movement, each a poem in physics. Serpentine locomotion, the most familiar, is a series of flowing S-shaped curves, the snake's way of pressing against the world in alternating arcs. Concertina motion, used in tight spaces, bunches the body into loops, anchoring with the rear while extending the front, then pulling the rest forward. Sidewinding, the elegant glide across deserts, lifts the body in sections, touching the sand at only 2 points at a time, like a brushstroke, skipping lightly across a canvas. Each technique is ancient, efficient, beautiful. It turns the ground into an ally rather than an obstacle, Scientists have studied this motion with cameras that capture thousands of frames per second. They find that every muscle fires in sequence, never overlapping wastefully. A single contraction may travel the entire length of the body, transforming energy into continuous propulsion. This is why snakes can climb trees, swim across rivers, and even scale glass walls. Their power isn't T in speed, it's S in control. Their stillness between movements is as essential as the motion itself. That balance between effort and rest defines the snake's entire being. It spends long hours coiled and silent, conserving energy, waiting for the right moment to act. When that moment comes, it moves with astonishing speed, not frantic, but precise, like a spring that knows its purpose. To see it strike is to watch potential become reality. Then, as quickly as it began, stillness returns. It wastes nothing. It leaves no mark. In a world obsessed with noise, the snake reminds us that mastery lives in quiet rhythm. Their hunting techniques, refined over millions of years, mirror this balance. Some, like pythons and boas, rely on constriction, an art of patience and control. They sense the heartbeat of their prey through pressure, tightening only until the pulse stops, then no further. There is no cruelty, only inevitability. The act is over in seconds, and the forest returns to silence. Others wield venom, that extraordinary biochemical invention, a weapon of precision that kills without chaos. A viper's strike lasts less than 1/10 of a second. The fangs fold forward, puncture, inject, and retract before the prey even reacts. It is the purest expression of economy, one motion, complete and final. And even this motion evolved not from aggression, but from necessity. In nature, every act of violence exists to maintain peace. Predation prevents overpopulation. Venom ensures survival with minimal struggle. Life, in its deepest rhythm, balances itself through such exchanges. Each snake's method matches its environment like poetry to meter. The arboreal green vine snake uses slow, hypnotic movements to approach birds without breaking the rhythm of wind in the leaves. The sea snake, in contrast, flows through coral like silk underwater, using its laterally flattened tail to steer. Its body moves in elegant, synchronized waves that push against invisible currents. On land, vipers rely on camouflage and geometry, the angle of light, the shadow of a rock, the illusion of stillness. No two species hunt the same way, yet every method shares the same principle: minimal effort, maximal effect. What's remarkable is how these strategies has changed so little. Fossilized impressions of early snakes show almost identical muscle and bone patterns to those of modern species. Evolution found a design that worked and simply refined it, polishing movement until it became art. Few animals demonstrate such confidence in their form. Few need to. Even digestion, often brutal in imagery, follows this same, quiet perfection. After swallowing prey, a snake's metabolism transforms. Organs expand, blood flow increases, enzymes awaken. The body shifts from stillness to symphony, converting matter into energy with astonishing efficiency. When digestion is complete, everything slows again. Heart rate drops, energy conserved. They may not eat for weeks, even months, yet remain healthy. To live like this is to master patience, to understand that energy is a resource, not a race. Everywhere they go, snakes influence balance. They regulate ecosystems invisibly, trimming excess and feeding abundance. When snakes vanish from an environment, chaos follows. Rodents multiply, crops suffer, disease spreads. When they return, order reappears quietly, as though the planet exhales again. Their presence is a kind of music that keeps time for the living world. Even in silence, they keep rhythm. Their control of energy goes beyond movement, and metabolism it extends into their very physiology. Unlike mammals, they can slow or quicken their internal processes depending on temperature and need. Cold-blooded, yes, but not passive. They choose how to move through heat and shadow, when to rise to the sun or retreat to coolness. It is a conscious collaboration with their environment, not dependence. They read the world and respond in kind, an ancient form of mindfulness practiced not by thought, but by instinct refined into grace. Their entire being whispers a truth humans are only beginning to rediscover. That calm is not the absence of motion, it is motion in harmony. Every strike, every breath, every stillness follows the same principle. And that principle, sustained for millions of years, is why snakes have survived where so many others fell. The life of a snake is measured not in heartbeats, but in temperatures. Where warm-blooded creatures race to maintain constant heat, the snake listens to the sun. Its body is a dialogue between fire and shadow, every motion a response to the world's breath. It warms itself when it must, cools when it can, never fighting the rhythm of the earth. To live this way is to live in partnership with nature's pulse. When dawn breaks and light begins to spill across the land, snakes emerge from burrows or crevices to meet it. Their scales, like mirrors, absorb and reflect in perfect measure. A few minutes of basking reawakens the body, the muscles loosen, enzymes spark, blood begins its slow dance through the veins. They don't to chase warmth, they collaborate with it. Each beam of light becomes nourishment, each patch of shade a place to pause. Their intelligence lies not in controlling the environment, but in aligning with it. This gift, ectothermy, is more than adaptation. It's philosophy. While mammals burn vast amounts of energy to fight cold, snakes spend almost none. They let the world do the work. A desert rattlesnake may go days without feeding, relying on stored warmth and minimal motion. A python, digesting after a large meal, may bask for hours, its metabolism tuned precisely to the heat it needs and no more. Every calorie is respected, every degree of warmth a currency spent wisely. It is an economy of life that borders on elegance. Inside, their organs play to this same rhythm. The heart, able to slow to near stillness, pumps only when necessary. Blood vessels shift flow depending on temperature, directing heat to organs or limbs with perfect timing. Even digestion pauses in cold and resumes in warmth, as if the body itself listens to the world as weather. This synchronization allows them to survive extremes that would destroy others. Frozen one night, revived the next, snakes treat temperature not as threat, but as teacher. In colder months, they retreat underground, entering states of profound rest. Metabolism drops to a whisper. Heartbeat becomes a suggestion rather than a sound. In this suspended state, brumation, they endure winter's silence. Dozens, sometimes hundreds, may share the same den, bodies coiled together for warmth. Enemies in summer become companions in cold, the shared rhythm of survival dissolving boundaries. It's a vision of cooperation often missed by those who see snakes only as solitary. Even in stillness, there is community. When spring returns, they emerge in quiet procession, moving toward the light like pilgrims. Mating follows soon after, and here again, patience defines them. Courting snakes move in slow, deliberate waves, their bodies touching in long spirals. There is no violence, no frenzy, just the old choreography of renewal. Eggs are laid or young born live, depending on the species, each small life beginning with the same ancient grace. Even birth in the serpent world carries stillness. There is no cry, no chaos, only emergence. The young are independent from the moment they arrive. They receive no lessons, no protection, no guidance. Everything they need to survive is already written into their movement. The flick of the tongue, the search for heat, the stillness before a strike, all instinct polished by millions of years of perfection. Where mammals raise their young in tenderness, snakes raise theirs in trust. Trust in the completeness of design. And that trust, unbroken through time, has carried them across every era the Earth has known. Even their senses are tuned to energy in ways we can only imagine. They feel vibration as language. They sense heat as sight. They read the world through gradients invisible to our eyes. A snake's perception is the world's quietest truth, that everything is movement, that every living thing leaves a trail of warmth, scent, or tremor. Nothing is hidden from a being that listens this deeply. It moves not through dominance, but through understanding. When scientists map their brains, they find patterns of precision. The optic tectum, the center for visual and thermal data, integrates heat and movement into a single stream of awareness. The body and mind act as one instrument perception flowing directly into motion, no thought, no hesitation. It's a system built for balance rather than curiosity. The snake doesn't question, it comprehends. Its knowledge is lived, not imagined. And in that living knowledge, there's a lesson humanity keeps forgetting. That energy cannot be hoarded, it must move. The snake knows this. It takes only what it needs and releases the rest back into the cycle. Its very physiology mirrors the law of balance that governs all life. Even death, when it comes, feeds the soil that once sustained it. The circle closes without resistance. There's something profoundly spiritual in that acceptance. No struggle, no arrogance, only participation. The snake doesn't demand permanence. It inhabits impermanence gracefully. Its scales fade, its body returns to the ground, and somewhere nearby, another coil rises to bask in morning sun. The same pattern, continued endlessly. To see one gliding through reeds or across the desert floor is to glimpse a truth too deep for words. That peace is not stillness without motion, but motion without waste. That harmony is not the absence of conflict, but the balance between forces. And that intelligence, at its highest form, is not knowing, but sensing. The serpent has practiced this wisdom for 100 million years, and in its presence, if we are quiet enough, we can feel that wisdom move through us, too. If the forest were an orchestra, snakes would be its quietest instrument, the faint undertone that keeps every other sound in tune. They do not announce their presence, yet their absence changes everything. Where they thrive, life stays balanced. Where they vanish, imbalance begins. It's easy to overlook them, but their influence hums beneath the surface of every ecosystem they touch. In grasslands, they regulate abundance. Each small motion beneath the soil, each careful strike among roots and stones, keeps rodent populations from spiraling. Without snakes, grains vanish to hungry teeth, disease spreads through droppings, and the rhythm of the land fractures. But with them, the equation stabilizes. The earth breathes evenly again. They are not predators in the ordinary sense, they are the keepers of proportion. In forests, they act as unseen architects. By feeding on seed eaters and insects, they control what grows and where. Too many rodents, and the forest chokes under stripped bark and ruined seedlings. Too few, and the soil lacks movement and aeration. Snakes, poised perfectly between hunger and restraint, maintain this balance with the precision of a heartbeat. Every ecosystem they touch beats to a rhythm they help conduct. Even in wetlands, where life is both abundant and fragile, their role is essential. Water snakes, gliding between reeds, keep amphibian populations healthy by removing the weak and sick. This quiet culling prevents outbreaks that could devastate ponds and streams. It is an act of natural mercy, necessary, gentle, inevitable. Predation, in their world, is not cruelty. It is continuity. High in canopies, tree snakes play their part as well. They hunt birds and small mammals, keeping insectivorous species in check. Without them, certain birds might overhunt their prey, unraveling the delicate layers of ecological control that tie everything together. Even their own predators, birds of prey, mongooses, wildcats, depend on the presence of snakes for sustenance. Remove the serpent, and the chain collapses. Balance, like music, requires every note to remain. This is the paradox of the serpent's power. It dominates nothing, yet sustains everything. Its quiet efficiency gives shape to the wild. It is both participant and regulator, hunter and healer. The ecosystems it inhabits don't merely tolerate it, they depend on it. Every slither, every stillness, every measured act of hunger or rest contributes to the planet's stability. And yet, its influence goes even deeper than population control. Through its movement, it shapes the land itself. When snakes glide across soil, they disturb leaf litter just enough to let light reach seedlings. When they tunnel through sand, they aerate the earth, mixing nutrients and oxygen. When they shed, their old skin becomes food for insects. Their scent trail a signal for countless other creatures. Even in death, they feed scavengers and soil alike. They are a kind of natural currency value never lost, only exchanged. This constant exchange defines the relationship between snakes and the environments they inhabit. Their bodies, scaled and efficient, embody the principle of ecological economy. Take only what is needed, give back in silence. Each species fulfills a specific role, tuned precisely to its surroundings. A desert adder's stillness mirrors the lifelessness of its habitat. Its strike, rare and exact, restores equilibrium. A rainforest python, immense yet tranquil, maintains order among chaos, its body part of the same pattern as vines and rivers. Wherever they exist, the world becomes a more stable place. To study them is to study restraint. They never overhunt. They never waste. Their survival is an agreement with the environment, an understanding that existence must harmonize with the whole. Even their camouflage honors this agreement. Their colors are not vanity. They are humility, a promise to blend rather than dominate. It is a kind of reverence that most creatures forget once they gain power. The snake, though armed with venom and strength, remembers it always. As scientists observe ecosystems recovering after the reintroduction of snakes, they see patterns emerge. Plant diversity increases. Insect populations stabilize. Predators above them, once struggling, return to abundance. The ripple spreads outward, a quiet miracle in motion. This is the hidden heartbeat of the natural world, the serpent's rhythm, ancient and unbroken. To live among snakes is to live in dialogue with patience. They teach, by their mere existence, that every motion has consequence. that stillness itself can shape destiny. They remind the living that power does not always roar. Sometimes it whispers. Sometimes it coils beneath a stone and waits, changing the world not by force, but by timing. Their balance is not just biological, it is philosophical. It reflects something universal, the necessity of moderation, of awareness, of calm within movement. In deserts, jungles, and mountains alike, this quiet wisdom resonates. The serpent's way is nature's most ancient meditation, a living expression of equilibrium. Even when unseen, they are guiding the pulse of life, making sure it neither races too fast nor slows to a stop. And perhaps that is why, throughout history, humans have sensed something divine in them. They embody the same principle we chase in our restless minds: stillness that lives, silence that speaks, motion that rests. The more closely we study snakes, the more we realize that their influence extends beyond the visible. They are woven into the invisible threads that hold entire systems together. Their presence affects how animals behave, how plants grow, even how disease spreads. They are conductors of equilibrium, fine-tuning the symphony of life without ever needing to be seen. In regions where snakes disappear through hunting, habitat loss, or fear, the change is immediate. Rodent populations surge, insects multiply, crops falter, and predators who rely on snakes for food begin to vanish. The absence of their quiet control sends tremors through the web of life. Ecologists call this a trophic cascade, but to nature, it's simply imbalance, a missing note in the harmony. Each ecosystem holds its rhythm only because every part knows when to move, when to rest. When one falls silent, the entire song shifts out of tune. But when snakes return, even in small numbers, the repair begins almost instantly. They move through fields and forests like caretakers, restoring an old rhythm. Predators adjust, prey adapts, and the land breathes easier. What humans see as danger is, in truth, the restoration of peace. The serpent is balance given form. Their relationships with other creatures often surprise us. Birds, for example, learn the patterns of snakes and adjust their nesting habits accordingly. In places with many tree snakes, birds build higher or weave their nests tighter, increasing survival rates. Predation becomes collaboration. Evolution refines both sides simultaneously. Through fear, harmony is born. Even mammals learn from them. Rodents shift feeding hours to avoid snakes. Insects adjust movement patterns to stay unseen. Every creature evolves to accommodate the serpent's rhythm, shaping itself around their presence. They are the quiet sculptors of adaptation. Even plants feel their influence, indirectly but powerfully. By regulating the animals that eat seeds and roots, snakes determine which plants flourish and which fade. A single predator's presence can shape an entire forest's diversity. It is a kind of invisible gardening, carried out in silence by a creature that leaves no footprints, and in human spaces, their presence continues to echo. Rural farmers often notice that crops thrive in fields where snakes dwell, not by superstition, but by science: fewer pests, fewer rodents, cleaner soil. In villages of India, Africa, and Southeast Asia, people have long recognized this balance. They may fear the bite, but they also know the benefit. The snake, to them, is both guardian and warning, a symbol not of evil, but of natural law of what happens when one part of life grows too bold and must be reminded to slow down. In modern cities, where pavement has replaced soil and glass towers reach for sky, snakes still find their place. They hide in gardens, under stones, near rivers, and drains, quiet as shadows. They feed on pests that thrive in human waste, restoring equilibrium in our own creations. We rarely see them, yet they continue their ancient work, unseen janitors of balance in a world that has forgotten stillness. Scientists have begun to notice something else, an odd correlation between biodiversity and peace of environment. Where snakes exist in abundance, ecosystems resist collapse more effectively. Their presence, even at low densities, acts as a stabilizing force. It is as though the earth itself moves more evenly when they are part of its fabric. Perhaps this is coincidence. Or perhaps their rhythm, refined over 100 million years, has become a kind of planetary metronome, keeping life's tempo steady. And though humans often separate themselves from nature, the serpent's influence still touches our inner world. In art, medicine, and philosophy, it reminds us of the same lesson over and over: transformation without destruction. It teaches us to move without haste, to adapt without panic, to renew ourselves when the world changes shape. We have modeled our technologies after their design. Robotics, medical catheters, even search and rescue devices mimic their flexible form. Their movement, once feared, has become an inspiration for progress. Nature's most ancient design, guiding the future quietly. But perhaps the most profound influence snakes have on us is internal. To see one glide through grass or water is to confront something older than thought, a calm beyond fear. In that moment, we glimpse what it means to exist in absolute harmony with the present. The snake does not regret the past or anticipate the future. It moves only when the world moves with it. It is the embodiment of acceptance. Its very existence whispers to us, "You can let go." Every culture that has watched a snake shed its skin understood that message. Transformation doesn't require violence. Change doesn't require chaos. It requires surrender, the soft willingness to grow beyond the old, to leave behind what no longer serves. Snakes perform this ritual without ceremony, without audience. They do it because that is life's nature, to renew, to release, to continue. The earth itself seems to mirror that rhythm. Mountains rise, erode, and rise again. Forests burn and bloom. Oceans advance, retreat, and advance again. Everything sheds, everything begins anew. And within that cycle, the snake remains the perfect metaphor, never clinging, never resisting, always moving with the current of time. So when we think of evolution, perhaps it isn't about survival of the fittest at all. Perhaps it is about survival of the calmest, of those who listen deeply enough to the world to move in tune with it. That, above all, is the serpent's lesson. It survives not by dominance, but by understanding. And in that understanding, it finds peace. Look closely at the earth beneath you, and you may notice the faint mark of scales sliding over dust. That mark, light as breath, is the planet's oldest signature, a reminder written again and again through ages of change. Be patient. Be still. Move with the rhythm of what is. That is how the world endures. That is how life continues. In the modern world, where cities hum and forests thin, the story of the snake continues quietly. They have outlasted ice ages, meteor strikes, and the rise and fall of continents, and now they move through the age of steel and glass with the same unhurried grace. They do not protest the change, they adapt. It is what they have always done. Even as jungles shrink and wetlands fade, snakes find new paths through the edges of human life. They curl under porches, slip between walls, bask on sun-warmed roads. They are survivors of the subtle kind, the kind that endures by listening. While most animals struggle to reclaim their territory, snakes learn to share it. They find warmth in engine bays, shelter in gardens, food where humans leave waste. To them, the world has not become uninhabitable. It has merely changed its texture. They read it the way they always have, through vibration, temperature, and patience. Scientists studying snakes in urban environments are discovering something remarkable. They're not just surviving. In some cases, they're thriving. Certain species have learned to adjust their hunting patterns to streetlight cycles, emerging when insects and rodents gather under artificial glow. Others follow storm drains and irrigation systems like rivers, tracing the veins of human infrastructure to find water and prey. Even in the most manufactured landscapes, life adapts. The serpent's ancient rhythm continues beneath our noise, unnoticed but unbroken. And yet, for all their resilience, they face danger and misunderstanding. Humans fear what moves without sound, what strikes without warning. Throughout history, that fear has followed snakes like a shadow. In some places, it has become a reflex: see a serpent, destroy it. But fear blinds us to the balance we break. Every snake killed removes a thread from the web of stability. Every missing predator invites imbalance to grow. We forget that fear itself is an instinct meant to guide, not dominate. To respect what we fear is to coexist. To destroy it is to unlearn the wisdom of nature. In recent decades, scientists and conservationists have begun to correct that imbalance. They study venom, not to weaponize it, but to heal. From cobra toxins come heart medications. From viper venom, treatments for blood pressure and clotting disorders. What once symbolized death now sustains life. Even antivenom's products of human ingenuity are born from the same creatures we feared. The circle of danger and cure is complete, written in scales and cells. The snake teaches again that every shadow holds light if we look closely enough. In laboratories, biologists study the molecular design of venom, the precise proteins that target specific pathways in the body. Each species produces a unique formula, fine-tuned by evolution to fit its ecological niche. Some venoms paralyze nerves, others break down tissue or stop the heart. To the snake, these are not tools of cruelty, but survival. And in understanding them, humans uncover medical marvels. The precision of venom has inspired new forms of targeted therapy, where medicine acts with the same elegance as a strike: fast, efficient, exact. It's as if nature itself wrote the blueprint for our most advanced healing. But beyond science and medicine, snakes challenge us to rethink our place in the world. They remind us that survival does not always mean conquest. It can mean surrendering to what is, adapting to what comes, finding grace in what changes. Where we build walls, they find gaps. Where we clear forests, they return when the earth heals. Their presence is a kind of forgiveness, a quiet willingness to start over, even after destruction. In remote jungles, herpetologists walk through leaf litter and fallen trees, searching for species unseen for decades. Some they rediscover. Others, they fear, are gone forever. But even among the missing, hope lingers. A rustle in the dark, a shed skin near a stream, signs that life still hides somewhere, waiting. Snakes have vanished before and returned again, slipping through extinction's grasp like water through fingers. Their story is one of persistence that borders on poetry. And as researchers catalog new species each year, tiny, luminous, unseen, before they be reminded of how little we truly know. The serpent's world is deep, intricate, hidden in layers of soil, root, and shadow. To study them is to study patience itself. A single discovery may take weeks of silence, hours of stillness, and one moment of alignment, like the earth choosing to reveal one of its oldest secrets. It's a discipline of listening rather than seeking. And those who listen often find more than just snakes. They find calm, they find awe, they find themselves mirrored in the quiet persistence of something ancient and alive. In that sense, the snake continues to teach us not as predator, not as threat, but as a reflection of balance. The longer we look, the more we realize how much our own survival depends on harmony with theirs. They are barometers of health, indicators of whether the land breathes freely or struggles under weight. When snakes vanish, the world is out of rhythm. When they return, the beat steadies again. Perhaps that is the clearest sign of all that life, at its truest, is a song meant to be shared. In the modern world, where cities hum and forests thin, the story of the snake continues quietly. They have outlasted ice ages, meteor strikes, and the rise and fall of continents, and now they move through the age of steel and glass with the same unhurried grace. They do not protest the change, they adapt. It is what they have always done. Even as jungles shrink and wetlands fade, snakes find new paths through the edges of human life. They curl under porches, slip between walls, bask on sun-warmed roads. They are survivors of the subtle kind, the kind that endures by listening. While most animals struggle to reclaim their territory, snakes learn to share it. They find warmth in engine bays, shelter in gardens, food where humans leave waste. To them, the world has not become uninhabitable. It has merely changed its texture. They read it the way they always have through vibration, temperature, and patience. Scientists studying snakes in urban environments are discovering something remarkable. They're not just surviving. In some cases, they thriving. Certain species have learned to adjust their hunting patterns to streetlight cycles, emerging when insects and rodents gather under artificial glow. Others follow storm drains and irrigation systems like rivers, tracing the veins of human infrastructure to find water and prey. Even in the most manufactured landscapes, life adapts. The serpent's ancient rhythm continued beneath our noise, unnoticed but unbroken. And yet, for all their resilience, they face danger in misunderstanding. Humans fear what moves without sound, what strikes without warning. Throughout history, that fear has followed snakes like a shadow. In some places, it has become a reflex: see a serpent, destroy it. But fear blinds us to the balance we break. Every snake killed removes a thread from the web of stability. Every missing predator invites imbalance to grow. We forget that fear itself is an instinct meant to guide, not dominate. To respect what we fear is to coexist. To destroy it is to unlearn the wisdom of nature. In recent decades, scientists and conservationists have begun to correct that imbalance. They study venom, not to weaponize it, but to heal. From cobra toxins come heart medications. From viper venom, treatments for blood pressure and clotting disorders. What once symbolized death now sustains life. Even anti-venom's products of human ingenuity are born from the same creatures we feared. The circle of danger and cure is complete, written in scales and cells. The snake teaches, again, that every shadow holds light if we look closely enough. In laboratories, biologists study the molecular design of venom, the precise proteins that target specific pathways in the body. Each species produces a unique formula, fine-tuned by evolution to fit its ecological niche. Some venoms paralyze nerves, others break down tissue or stop the heart. To the snake, these are not tools of cruelty, but survival. And in understanding them, humans uncover medical marvels. The precision of venom has inspired new forms of targeted therapy, where medicine acts with the same elegance as a strike: fast, efficient, exact. It is as if nature itself wrote the blueprint for our most advanced healing. But beyond science and medicine, snakes challenge us to rethink our place in the world. They remind us that survival does not always mean conquest. It can mean surrendering to what is, adapting to what comes, finding grace in what changes. Where we build walls, they find gaps. Where we clear forests, they return when the earth heals. Their presence is a kind of forgiveness, a quiet willingness to start over, even after destruction. In remote jungles, herpetologists walk through leaf litter and fallen trees, searching for species unseen for decades. Some they rediscover, others they fear are gone forever. But even among the missing, hope lingers. A rustle in the dark, a shed skin near a stream, signs that life still hides somewhere, waiting. Snakes have vanished before and returned again, slipping through extinction's grasp, like water through fingers. Their story is one of persistence that borders on poetry. And as researchers catalog new species each year, tiny, luminous, unseen, before they reminded of how little we truly know. The serpent's world is deep, intricate, hidden in layers of soil, root, and shadow. To study them is to study patience itself. A single discovery may take weeks of silence, hours of stillness, and one moment of alignment, like the earth choosing to reveal one of its oldest secrets. It is a discipline of listening rather than seeking. And those who listen often find more than just snakes. They find calm, they find awe, they find themselves mirrored in the quiet persistence of something ancient and alive. In that sense, the snake continues to teach us not as predator, not as threat, but as a reflection of balance. The longer we look, the more we realize how much our own survival depends on harmony with theirs. They are barometers of health, indicators of whether the land breathes freely or struggles under weight. When snakes vanish, the world is out of rhythm. When they return, the beat steadies again. Perhaps that is the clearest sign of all that life, at its truest, is a song meant to be shared. As our cities grow louder, the snake remains a whisper. It doesn't compete with the noise. It moves beneath it. While humans build higher, dig deeper, and burn brighter, the serpent continues its quiet existence, timeless, observant, unbothered by the speed of progress. Its world hasn't vanished. It has simply changed form. Concrete replaces soil, light replaces stars, but the rhythm of life continues to pulse beneath it all. Beneath the pavements and gardens, under foundations and fields, they find their way. Some species have adapted to live near irrigation canals, finding water where rain no longer falls. Others slip through industrial zones, invisible until dusk, when heat lingers on the steel and stone. They are reminders that life, when left unburdened by fear, always finds a path. Even in the most altered landscapes, the pattern of nature persists, patient, enduring, and endlessly inventive. Urban ecologists have begun to see snakes as markers of environmental healing. When snakes appear in restored habitats, it signals a deeper recovery. Their presence means prey populations have stabilized, vegetation has matured, and the web of life has begun to knit itself back together. In a way, they are the Earth's quiet stamp of approval, a sign that the land has begun to breathe again. But they also reveal something about us. For centuries, we've carried the image of the serpent as a symbol of temptation, of danger, of deceit. Yet that same image, in other cultures, represents wisdom, medicine, eternity. Two truths coiled together. Perhaps what we fear in snakes isn't their nature, it's what they reflect about our own. They shed their skin without hesitation. We cling to what we've outgrown. They rest when the world slows. We rush even when there's no need to. They adapt without complaint. We resist even gentle change. The serpent, in silence, mirrors our struggle and our potential all at once. In modern philosophy and psychology, the snake has re-emerged not as a villain, but as a teacher. Carl Jung saw it as a symbol of transformation, the unconscious shedding its old self to make room for growth. Across countless spiritual traditions, it winds through stories of renewal and rebirth, from the Ouroboros devouring its own tail to the twin serpents of healing wrapped around the staff of Asclepius. These symbols remind us of something simple but profound. Life continues through change, not despite it. The naturalists who study snakes often speak of a strange calm that comes over them in the field. Hours spent waiting, listening, scanning the landscape for a faint movement. In that waiting, the boundary between observer and environment dissolves. Every rustle becomes language, every shift of shadow an invitation. And when a snake finally appears, it is not a moment of alarm, it is recognition, as if something ancient and familiar has returned to greet them. That calm stays with them long after they've left the field. They carry it home, into their own lives, into their own breathing. To watch a creature that has mastered patience is to be changed by it. Even those who rescue snakes from urban homes speak of it. When they find one coiled in a garden or resting in a garage, they approach slowly, gently. They know the snake's fear mirrors their own. It strikes not out of hatred, but confusion and instinct for survival in a world too loud. Once relocated, once released back into the wild, it disappears without hesitation. No resentment, no vengeance, just motion, quiet and sure. The encounter leaves behind a kind of peace, an unspoken reminder that coexistence is possible when met with respect. Across the world, conservation projects are teaching new generations that snakes are not enemies, but allies. In schools, children learn how snakes keep ecosystems healthy, how their venom saves lives, how their presence marks the balance of nature. The message spreads slowly, like sunlight creeping through forest leaves. Fear fades through understanding, and as it fades, compassion grows in its place. The more we learn about snakes, the more we recognize them not as exceptions to the rule of life, but as its purest embodiment. They are the world's memory made flesh, a lineage unbroken for more than 100 million years. They remind us that survival isn't about conquest or cleverness, but about alignment, about knowing when to move, when to wait, and when to change. Their story is not one of dominance, but of devotion to balance. If we listen closely, their message is clear. There is no need to rush. There is no need to fear transformation. Every ending carries a beginning within it, just as every shed skin carries the imprint of the body that once wore it. Life renews itself quietly, endlessly, like a serpent gliding across the dust of ages. And perhaps that is why they have endured while empires rose and fell, while species brighter and louder vanished from the record. They endure because they do not fight the current, they become it. They do not fear the dark, they move through it. They do not chase eternity, they embody it. In the snake's unbroken motion lies the secret we have always sought, that peace isn't found in stillness alone, but in stillness that moves. Before humans drew their first symbols on cave walls, before cities and firelight and story, snakes were already here. Their bodies slid across the same ground our ancestors walked barefoot upon, their eyes reflecting the same stars that guided us through the dark. They were the silent witnesses to everything: our fears, our growth, our becoming. And even now, as we build worlds of concrete and light, they continue to move through the quiet spaces we forget to look at. Their story never ended. It simply became harder to hear. Evolution gave them no limbs, no voice, no expression, only patience. And with patience, they conquered time. Every other creature has changed form beyond recognition, but snakes remain themselves, ancient and new all at once. In their DNA lies the record of 1,000,000 adaptations, the tightening of muscle, the sharpening of sense, the refining of stillness until it became an art. Where other species fought to dominate, snakes learned to wait. They understood that the world rewards balance, not aggression, that harmony, not haste, ensures survival. Their body is the blueprint of efficiency. No wasted motion, no unnecessary feature. The skeleton is both weapon and instrument, built for silence and control. Every rib, every vertebra, every muscle knows exactly when to move and when to rest. And within that structure lies the oldest wisdom of all. Do only what is needed, and do it completely. That truth, written in bone, outlasted the extinction of giants. When the dinosaurs fell, snakes remained. While ash covered the sky and the world grew cold, they found warmth underground. When the seas changed and the forests burned, they adapted again. Their survival was not luck, it was listening. They didn't fight the change, they moved with it. They became the embodiment of nature's resilience, living proof that adaptation isn't its surrender, it's mastery. As mammals rose and the earth reshaped itself, snakes spread across every continent. They learned the language of every climate, the dry whispers of sand, the murmurs of rain-soaked leaves, the heartbeat of rivers. Each environment taught them something new, and they folded those lessons into their being. Over time, they became the Earth's quiet translators, converting heat into motion, vibration into understanding, stillness into life. Their presence stitched the world's ecosystems together. Everywhere they went, balance followed. Humans arrived much later, and from the start, we recognized something powerful in them. In the serpent's motion, we saw both danger and divinity. They fascinated and frightened us, because they reflected what we could not control: change itself. They shed their skin, seemingly reborn, while we struggled to shed our fears. They moved through shadow while we feared the dark, and so we made them symbols of death and wisdom, of temptation and healing. We gave them meaning because we sensed they already had it. In every corner of the world, the serpent appears. In ancient Egypt, it guarded the gates of the afterlife. In India, it wound around gods and rivers alike. In Greece, it coiled around the staff of medicine. In Mesoamerica, it flew as Quetzalcoatl, the feathered serpent spirit of creation. Even in Eden, it wasn't a destruction the serpent brought, but awareness, knowledge, curiosity, transformation. The price of wisdom is always the same, the loss of comfort. And so the snake became both warning and guide, a symbol of what happens when we wake from innocence into understanding. Yet beyond myth and story, the real snake continued its quiet journey, indifferent to the meanings we placed upon it. It continued to hunt, to shed, to rest. It watched empires rise and fall. It slid beneath temple stones and through the roots of forgotten cities, outlasting every civilization that tried to define it. The serpent endures because it doesn't need belief. Its truth is written in its existence, not in our words. Today, in an age that moves faster than thought, its lesson is more vital than ever. We chase progress until we can breathe, fill silence until it collapses, and call the noise living. But the snake reminds us that stillness can move mountains, that patience can outlast power, that life, when aligned with its rhythm, doesn't need to fight to flourish. The serpent survives because it understands flow. It knows when to strike and when to disappear, when to move and when to let the world move for it. In a way, the snake is not just a survivor of evolution, it is evolution's conscience. It shows us what happens when adaptation becomes peace, when form and function become one. Its story is not only about survival, but about understanding the laws of existence so deeply that they become instinct. It doesn't force the world to bend, it bends with it, until the world and body move as one. That, perhaps, is the secret that has kept it alive for over 100 million years. And if we quiet ourselves long enough, we can hear that secret too. It is the sound of leaves brushing over scales in the undergrowth. It is the low hum of breath beneath earth, where warmth and shadow meet. It is the pulse that continues long after we've forgotten to listen. The serpent's rhythm, older than fire, older than speech, older than fear, still beats beneath our feet. And if we listen carefully, we might find that it's our rhythm too. Night falls across the earth. The air cools, and in that quiet hour when light gives way to shadow, the snakes begin to move. It is not hunting time, not exactly. It is the time of balance, the hour when the world exhales, and everything that lives listens. Across deserts and jungles, mountains and rivers, they glide unseen. Each motion a reminder that life is still here, alive and aware beneath the hum of the modern world. Their bodies trace patterns we've forgotten to recognize. Loops, spirals, endless circles that repeat like the breathing of the planet. The same shapes carved into temples, painted on pottery, etched in myth. We did not invent those patterns. We discovered them. They were already here, written in the motion of the serpent, in the pulse of the living earth. Even now, the snake teaches through its silence. It teaches the art of moving with purpose and resting with intention. It teaches that change is not an ending, but a rhythm. That the self can die and be born again countless times, each shedding a whisper of what once was. We call it evolution. But to the snake, it is simply living. Its skin, left behind, glows faintly in the moonlight, a perfect imprint of what it used to be. It lies there for a while, then fades, crushed back into the soil that once sustained it. And somewhere nearby, the snake continues on, lighter now, unburdened by the old. It does not look back. It doesn't wonder who it used to be. It just moves forward, smooth and silent, into the rhythm of night. That is its gift, the ability to continue. Imagine the feeling of that release. the cool air brushing across new scales, the relief of space where pressure once was. The world feels wider, the body softer. Every sense sharpens not from tension, but from clarity. This is what the serpent knows, that growth isn't addition, it's subtraction. We don't evolve by gaining, but by letting go. And so it has gone on for millions of years, teaching without words, guiding without intent. The snake's evolution mirrors our own spiritual evolution, though we rarely see it that way. It began as something simple, primal, ruled by instinct and survival. But as it shed and shifted, it became a symbol of transformation, of awareness, of wisdom born from quiet endurance. And maybe that's where all evolution leads, from instinct to insight, from hunger to harmony. Every species alive today carries a piece of that journey. Every creature is an echo of what came before, shaped by time and necessity. But the snake, more than any other, has made peace with that truth. It doesn't resist what it becomes. It doesn't grieve what it was. It accepts the turning of the world and moves with it. In that way, it has achieved what we call enlightenment, long before we gave the word meaning. Somewhere, deep in a forest untouched by noise, a python sleeps beneath the roots of a banyan tree. Its coils rise and fall with the rhythm of the earth. Rain falls, slow and steady, tapping against leaves, washing the dust from its scales. Nearby, a small stream hums a low note. Everything is still, but nothing is motionless. It is the peace of the living world, a stillness that moves, a silence that speaks. And if you listen closely enough, you can feel it too. That slow pulse beneath your own skin. That faint, ancient rhythm that has guided life since the beginning. It's the same rhythm that flows through the serpent's body, through the trees, through rivers and stars. It's the rhythm that says, you are part of this. You have always been part of this. You were never separate. The serpent's story, then, is not about distance, it's about return. A return to balance, to awareness, to the understanding that we are not above nature, but within it. When we slow down, when we move gently, when we listen, we hear what the serpent has known all along. That peace does not come from stillness alone, but from harmony with movement. The world is never static, but it can be calm. It can be quiet. It can breathe with us. And as this long journey through time reaches its end, imagine one final image. A snake resting in moonlight. Its body, a ribbon of silver against the dark. Its eyes half closed, unafraid. Somewhere far away, waves crash, trees sway, and the stars move through their own endless path. Everything in its place, everything in motion, everything at peace. The snake exhales, and so does the world. All that's left is breath and silence and the slow unfolding of eternity. The story doesn't end here, it never does. It just continues, quietly, like a serpent gliding through the dark, calm, eternal, and free.